After Walt Disney's death in 1967, the Walt Disney Animation Company was in a little bit of trouble financially speaking, resulting in an 18-year period of some pretty inexpensive films in which only 8 came out. Yeah, 18 years, 8 movies. Yeah, it was like one every 3 years, and there were a couple that came out in 1 year, but it resulted in kind of a mixed bag in terms of quality. And admittedly, this era was a little bit of a slog to get through, but I had to sit through this one if I wanted to get to the Renaissance, which I am really looking forward to revisiting. So, yeah, let's rank the Disney Dark Age. Whoopee. Number 8, The Black Cauldron. The animation's nice. It does look kind of cool. The Horned King is pretty cool, despite not having a ton of screen time. But I really, really, really don't like this movie. It's terrible. Like, not a single character is good. No, scratch that. One character is good, the Horned King. But he barely has any screen time. I hate his little goblin henchman man, Creeper. And then there's the 4 main characters, who are just exhausting. There's this little guy named Gurgi, who everybody seems to hate, that I honestly don't mind that much. Then there's Princess Ailanwi, and there's this other dude named Fluder Flam. The names in this movie are they're so ridiculous. The only other time I've seen this ridiculous of names in a Disney film is Frozen 2. So yeah, I guess this princess girl starts out as okay, but then she kind of gets a little bit less that as the film goes along. There's these fairies and witches that just feels like random shortcuts. There's this pig that is overall very irrelevant to the story, and I figured it was going to be a bit of a plot point, and it was, but then it wasn't. So that was weird. Overall, this movie is very boring, and when I wasn't yelling at my screen in anger, I was just sitting there bored. Speaking of yelling in anger, the worst part about this movie is its main character, Taran. I loathe Taran. 20 seconds into his screen time in this movie, and I wanted to strangle his little neck. He never stops whining. He never shuts up. He just continually fantasizes about himself being a hero to the point where he loses this pig that he was supposed to be looking after, because this pig is a pivotal plot point for like the first half of the movie, and then it's not anymore, and it's the whole thing. But yeah, he's too busy like looking at a pond and fantasizing about himself being the greatest hero in all the land. He just constantly whines and moans and complains, and I hate him. And he yells at everybody else for overshadowing his heroics. Yeah, he claims that he gets them out of this castle. Well, no, this sword that he was using got them out of the castle. And then this one girl is like, no, it was the sword. And he's like, no, it was me. I'm a hero. I'm a warrior. Its voice is annoying. Everything about him is terrible. He is one of my least favorite Disney characters of all time. Other than that, the movie kind of sucks. Yeah. Let's move on. Number 7, the Aristocats. It's perfectly serviceable, I guess. There are these 2 dogs that I did like. I enjoyed the song Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. I think the villain, Edgar, is okay. But this movie is so shockingly forgettable that it kind of hurts. It's also just a combination of 101 Dalmatians and Lady and the Tramp, except with cats. And as interesting as that sounds, which it doesn't, I assure you, it's less interesting than that. I was bored by this movie. Very much so. The characters are all extremely uninteresting. Even Baloo the cat. I mean, this O'Malley dude. He's just voiced by the same guy who voices Baloo. And he looks exactly like Baloo, but he's a cat. Anyway, and this cat and then her little kittens just didn't do it for me. The songs, aside from Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, are all god awful. The characters, or the side characters, aside from these two dogs and this one cat and his band, are stupid. There's these dumb geese that I absolutely loathe. That I hate them, but that's the most I really care to feel about this movie. And then there's the setup for the story is that there's this old lady who owns these cats. And the plan is when she dies, she's going to give her fortune, her entire estate, which might I add is enormous, to her cats. Why would she give an estate to cats? I know they can talk, but she doesn't know that. I'm sure the cats would be just as happy with a gallon of milk. What's going on here? So, yeah, I don't like this movie. I only watched it like a couple weeks ago, and I can barely remember a number of things about it. So, what does that tell you? Let's move on. Number 6, Oliver and Company. This is barely a step up from the Aristocats, to be honest. I mean, I kind of like this one gang of dogs. They're pretty cool characters, and I enjoyed their dynamic. I like this one butler dude. The villains are actually pretty cool. There's this one dude called Sykes who's kind of like a mafia boss, and they definitely hinted him being a mafia boss. Man, I would love to see like a real mafia boss in a Disney movie. That'd be so cool. But, yeah, he's cool. I like his two dogs, Roscoe and DeSoto. They didn't deserve to die, man. The soundtrack, for the most part, gets really, really old very fast. Aside from this one song called Why Should I Worry that I found kind of catchy. But it's just kind of a forgettable and dull movie. I feel like the protagonist of the movie, Oliver, learned nothing. Like, there was no evidence of a character arc. In fact, he barely speaks. Why wasn't this Fagin dude the protagonist? He's the one that's actually trying to beat the villain. Like, what's going on here? Oliver is not a character. He is a plot device. Fagin he's trying to come up with some money to give back to Sykes. Wait a minute. This movie is just Shark Tale. Oh my god, Shark Tale stole from this movie. Anyway. Also, the movie becomes Annie in the climax, like the musical Annie. This little girl gets kidnapped and taken to train tracks. And then the little girl in the movie actually dresses up like Annie in the climax. No, not in the climax, after the climax of the film. So, yeah, it's not a good movie. Oh, yeah, and there's this one dog who's voiced by Billy Joel, who does an awful New York accent, by the way. And I hate this dog. He's so annoying. And his name's Dodger, and I hate him. Yeah, let's move on. I don't care about this movie at all. Number 5, The Rescuers. As a lad, I actually really liked this movie. And it looking back on it now, it's pretty good. Sometimes the animation is a little bit cheap looking, like the animators actually forgot to erase the pencil lines on the characters. The backgrounds are not very interesting. But yeah, I think the songs are kind of weird. Like, they play in the background at various points, which is a little bit odd. Except this one song, like the anthem for the Rescue Aid Society, that honestly is kind of catchy. Also, the Air Force theme plays at a couple intervals, and that was pretty cool. You know something that kind of bothered me about this movie that I didn't see as a little kid? The main female character, Bianca, like, the movie kind of goes out of its way to mock her for packing a suitcase and wearing perfume. like a lot of the conflict of the movie hinges on those two things. Like this other dude, Bernard, often openly mocks her for packing a suitcase and wearing perfume. And I don't know why that is. Also, Bernard is superstitious, which, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Why was that even in the movie? Still, it's good. It's a good movie. I enjoyed the side characters, and despite my complaints about the handling of the main pairing, I like them too. I think the villain in Madame Medusa is really, really funny. Hey, I'm making another Annie comparison. She's like Miss Hannigan from Annie, but she's spectacular. I really enjoyed this albatross dude named Orville. Is that the right brother? Yeah. So yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's just not one that I feel has aged particularly well, especially since it came out and when I watched it as a lad. Anyway, number 4, The Fox and the Hound. Watching this movie again was interesting because I feel like everything is there to make it great, but there are some, how should I say this, Disney-isms that kind of hold it back. So I feel like if this movie had been made by someone like Don Bluth made The Secret of Nim, An American Tail, The Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven, those movies. If he had made this movie, I feel like it would have been A+, absolute masterpiece. As is, it's a Disney movie, and it's, yeah, you can kind of tell that. There's a lot of meandering once Todd, the fox, is dropped off in the forest, and he meets this girl fox named Vixie, and they're a really boring couple. There are some absolutely atrocious songs in this movie. Like, there's this song about brands and a song about natural attraction, and then the one that this widow sings that I really, really, really don't like. And the problem is they play over these big emotional moments that they should have just had, like, the animation and the expressions on the characters' faces, like, reveal the emotions of the scene. You don't need to play these boring songs over it. So, yeah, there's some problems with this movie, but overall, I think the story is really, really good here. It's actually kind of driven by the emotions of the characters, which was kind of uncommon for a Disney film of this time period. Because even the better movies aren't really driven by emotion. But, yeah, you have this fox whose best friend left for like a year, and all he wants to do is just regain that friendship. And you have this dog who's kind of struggling between his previous friendship with the fox and his current duties as a hunting dog. And I think that's a really interesting story to do this with. I like the side characters, especially this one dog voiced by Pat Buttram. Yeah, one of the most distinct voices I've ever heard. He was the sheriff in Robin Hood. He was this one dog called Chief here. He was in The Rescuers. Yeah, I loved the climax where Todd has to fight this enormous bear that just kind of comes out of nowhere. I mean, usually that'd be a problem, but I don't care. I kind of enjoyed this bear. And then this one hunter dude called Amos Slade, who owns Copper and Chief, he's gonna go to shoot Todd, and then Copper just like stands in front of him with this sad expression on his face, and I think that worked really well. Also, is it a little weird that Mickey Rooney and Kurt Russell voiced Todd and Copper respectively? That's kind of insane. Anyway, so yeah, it's not a perfect movie. It could be a perfect movie, but it's not. Even so, I really enjoyed it. Number 3, a big surprise for me, The Great Mouse Detective. This movie held up really, really well. There are a couple issues here. This one dude named Dawson, who's basically just Dr. Watson, but a mouse. Yeah, this is just Sherlock Holmes, but with mice and with different names. He just keeps, like, every time Basil does something, he's like, amazing! And it's like, it gets old. And then I think Basil just kind of sulks a little too often, and that's kind of weird. The Queen in this movie is hilariously stupid. Like, there's an infiltration that happens, like, right all around her, and she's like, what's going on here? And there's also a stripper mouse in this movie, which is really, really weird and really, really unnecessary. Like, she sings this, she comes out in this coat. She looks very formal and regal and stuff like that. And then she takes off the coat, and then she starts dancing around with a bunch of backup singers, and all the dude mice are all, like, slobbering over her, and it's like, just the whole scene, I had this kind of disgusted and bizarre, freaked out expression on my face, because it's a really weird scene to have in a G-rated Disney film directed by Musker and Clements from 1986 that is intended for children. What is going on here? But yeah, that's all the problems I have with this movie. I really enjoyed Basil. I liked Dawson. I enjoyed Olivia. She was fun. The movie's funny, which I did not expect. It's really well paced, which again is kind of an oddity for a Disney film to be complimented on its pacing, at least a Disney film from this time period. The climax is awesome. The songs overall are good. There are two good songs. But there is one great song, World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which is sung about and by Professor Ratigan, who I will talk about later. I like the little subtle references to Sherlock Holmes that the movie makes. And then there's Ratigan, who is such a fun antagonist. Oh, man. He's so insane and delightfully evil. Oh, man. His design is fantastic. I like how he becomes more like a rat as the movie goes on, and especially in the climax, he becomes a lot more beast-like, where he was kind of trying to hide his anger through sophistication throughout the film. And then he actually stops his own villain song right in the middle so he can feed this one drunken mouse who called him a rat to this giant cat, which was hilarious. But anyway, yes. I really, really enjoyed this movie, and I really wasn't expecting to. Also, Cats, the musical Cats, stole lyrics from this movie. Yeah, like, in the song, in the musical Cats, they refer to McCavity the mystery cat as the Napoleon of crime. I don't like Cats. I kind of like that song, and I listen to it every now and then. And then in this movie, which came out before Cats, Basil refers to Ratigan as the Napoleon of crime. So that's a little interesting, but anyway, yeah. Big surprise with this movie. Number 2, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. It doesn't have a story, and it's a package film. And if you watch my ranking of the wartime era, you know that I'm not a big fan of package films. But the difference between this movie and the wartime era is that it had all the same characters in each segment. So it feels a lot more cohesive as a result. It's intentionally episodic, but that's kind of a good thing because, I guess some of the background animation is a little bit rigid and stiff sometimes, but it's such a charming movie. The setting of the 100 Acre Wood is so fun to just visit. The characters are all ridiculously likable. Every individual chapter, and heck, every individual scene and moment in this movie is great. I enjoyed every part of it. The narrator voices Bagheera in the Jungle Book, so that was cool, and his voice is just phenomenal. The score is honestly really, really good. The songs are really fun. The standout being Heffalumps and Woozles. We get an introduction to Tigger in this movie, and it's great. And there's a lot of like back and forth between him and Rabbit about Tigger not bouncing and just being an overall kind of pain. Honestly, I enjoy every part of this movie. This was such a delight to go back and revisit. It's not a Disney film that I'm going to rewatch a lot, but it's one that I will always appreciate when I do. But number one, I really struggled between these top two, but my favorite film of the Disney Dark Age, Robin Hood. I love Robin Hood, you guys. It's so good. The only problem that holds it back from masterpiece levels is that it reuses a large number of shots in other Disney movies, like Alice in Wonderland, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Aristocats, The Jungle Book. If you watch some of these scenes back to back, or it's very obvious, or if you watch just a compilation of reused shots in Disney movies, I guarantee that this movie will pop up the most in terms of reusing shots, because it was only made for a budget of $5 million, man, so yeah, and I know it was different times, but even then, that's still a pretty low budget, so they kind of had to compromise on the animation front. I mean, the animation isn't bad. They just reuse it a lot. But even so, I just adore this movie. I kind of like how the story is really kind of intense and dramatic. Like, it's a story that can be enjoyed by adults or teens, such as myself. But it's just made for kids in some of the specific details. But if you just look at the story, an oppressive ruler taxes the poor citizens of his kingdom, and a noble hero rises up from it and causes a revolt, and that's a dramatic story. I like that. The movie has phenomenal characters, like Robin Hood himself is just such a charming and likable guy, and then Little John. Who am I kidding? It's just Baloo in this movie, but it's Little John. Yeah, I love Little John. He's hilarious. I really like how he dresses up as this Duke dude. That was funny. The villains are awesome. I enjoyed Sir Hiss. The Sheriff of Nottingham is an evil little rat. Like, he steals some 7-year-old kid's birthday present, which is like a single coin. He takes coins out of a blind man's tin. He steals coins from the cast of a dude with a broken leg. This dude is psychotic. And then you have Prince John, who is absolutely more evil. He's trying to hang a priest, a freaking friar. Good Lord. But in addition to Prince John being an evil rat, he is also hilarious. This guy had me laughing all throughout the movie. I kid you not. He's hysterical. Like, his voice is one of the most distinct I've ever heard. More so than Pat Buttram. It's so ridiculous, and it's so funny, and he delivers every single line so well. And, I mean, the movie across the board is just really, really funny. The action is really, really good and super energetic. The climax is intense and spectacular because it starts out like really quiet with Robin and the gang like infiltrating the palace, and then it ends with a burning building and Robin leaping from the top of the tower. And then you think, oh my god, Robin Hood's dead. But then he's not actually dead because, of course, it's a Disney movie with animals as all the characters. The score is phenomenal. The songs are honestly great. Every single one of them. I don't know, if I had to pick a personal favorite, I'd probably say Phony King of England, but it's just such a fun song where every single person in the movie that's a good character actually, like, just stomps all over Prince John's name. And then in the very next scene, the villains of the movie start singing the song. It's hilarious. I love this movie. And yeah, the whole Disney Dark Age is pretty rough and was, as a whole, kind of a tough one to get through. But, I mean, next up we have the Renaissance, and finally, since I have this ranking done, I can actually start watching through all those movies. I can't wait. It includes some of my favorite Disney movies. Also, other terrible ones, but we'll talk about that in the next ranking. Thank you for watching this video. Like, subscribe, and as always, remember to keep calm and watch out.